Good evening. Welcome to Channel 17, Town Meeting TV's continuing coverage of Town Meeting Day in Vermont. Tonight we welcome the town of Williston, and we'll learn about the budget and ballot items coming before the voters on March 6th. Please remember to call in anytime with your questions about this program, recorded on February 9th. The number to call is 862-3966. All right, tonight we have Rick Maguire, Town Manager, Jennifer Kennelly, Finance Director, and Terry Macaig, who's Board Chair. They're with us tonight. And at 6 o'clock, we'll have a candidate forum. We have two candidates running unopposed. Terry, let's start with the big picture. What budget and ballot items will voters be asked to consider?
Thanks very much for the presentation opportunity tonight. So tonight we're expect to get through 4 articles, and Article 6 involves the town's budget plan. The next article poses the question of whether or not the town should withdraw as a member of the Winooski Valley Park District. Article 8 involves a proposal for the town to purchase 25 existing solar tracker panels. And the final article presents a question on whether or not the town should join in the formation of a public safety authority to provide regional dispatch services. So thank you to the Select Board, the remainder of the Select Board, Rick Maguire and Jennifer Kennelly, all the department heads for their hard work on the budget. We started this process with the Select Board in November. We had weekly meetings during the months of December and January. And the budget preparation process is a long 5-month process, which includes all of the staff getting together with Rick and presenting their proposals. And that culminates with a townwide vote on March 6th. And I think Rick is going to take it from here.
Yes, thank you, Terry. I'd like to start by addressing a fundamental question before we get into the actual numbers of the budget, and I'll have Jennifer do that. The focus often when we talk about numbers is where to cut the budget, let's slash it, what kinds of percentage increases are we talking about? But this focus kind of takes away from what the budget really means. And what it is it's a plan. And it's a plan that talks about the services that we plan to provide, the cost of those services, and how, and it's all the services that people rely on for the town. And if you look at our, actually Jennifer has a pie chart that shows this, the majority of the money that the town spends actually goes for public safety related services. So that just underlies the importance of the services that we provide to the town. And that's really what a budget is all about, aside from the numbers. Put it on the next slide. And this, I have a quote here that kind of illustrates the appreciation that we have from people in town and how the town services do impact their lives. And I'll just quickly read this. This is from someone who posted on a social media forum last month. And the quote is, thought it was time to thank all the Williston road crews for the wonderful job they do year in and year out, clearing our neighborhood and other town roads and keeping them clear all winter long. Thank you. Your tireless work is greatly appreciated. And of course, our crews were quite busy this week with the storm that we had. So I know a lot of people did appreciate the services they provide. So we do need to talk about some of the numbers, so I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to walk us through some of the numbers.
Great. So Rick talked about services. So how much will these services cost the town of Williston this year? Our proposed budget is $11,111,035. A lot of ones there. An increase of $497,075 from last year, or about 4.75%. That seems high when you first look at it, but some of those major cost factors are wage and benefits are going up $341,000. And part of this is $130,000 is an accounting change that we're doing. In the past, we've taken Public Works and split part of their time into stormwater work. And this year we have software that will help us track individual project work that they do. So there will be some revenue that you also see in the Highway Department when we get to the revenue piece. The Environmental Reserve Fund is going up $220,000, and this is for the purchase of the Catamount Community Forest, which you'll hear more about. Some other services are going up. We put some seed money in for a housing trust fund. So this is the first year that we'll see that, $15,000. And repair of the steeple that hosts the town clock is $25,000. We are seeing some decreases. Capital projects this year are going down $136,000. And part of that is last year we purchased an 8th highway truck, and this year we don't have that large purchase. So a lot of our capital projects are just capital savings. We save a little bit each year for the replacement of our vehicles, and this year we're on track to keep that relatively flat. And debt service, you'll see, is actually going down for the town of Williston. We have not added any new debt this year, so as we pay down that debt, it goes down. Great, and this is, as Rick mentioned earlier, this is just how the expenditures break down by department. And you'll see about $55,000 is Department of Public Works and Public Safety. A large portion of the capital project and debt service are related to those departments as well. So a large portion of the Williston Town budget is directed toward the safety, keeping our community members and our visitors in the town of Williston safe. How will these services be paid for? They're paid for through user fees and state and federal grants, host town fees, impact fees, local options tax, and property taxes. This year we're seeing an increase in user fees of $111,000. An increase in highway revenue, so that I talked about at the beginning of wages going up in the highway department of $130,000 is being offset by revenue that department will generate. So they're paying for the labor, but then they'll be getting revenue from the stormwater fund to pay for this project work. The big one is the increase in property taxes of $155,000. And we'll talk about that in a little bit of what that means for individual homeowners in Williston, and an increase in the fund balance of $71,000. So again, Williston is fortunate in that we have different sources of revenue. About 49% of it is property tax, and about 26% is local option tax, and then the others we have there. What does this cost for individual homeowners in the town of Williston? Our current tax rate is 26.5 cents, and we were able to keep our property tax increase to slightly less than 0.5 cent. So about for every $100,000 of home value, about $4.40 increase this year. Great. And then as far as how our tax rate compares to others in Chittenden County, you can see Williston is at the bottom of the list, just above the town of Charlotte.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, for that quick overview. There's a lot of numbers in there, but and the select board spent a lot of time going through those numbers. So I'm sure if anyone has any questions, either at town meeting or even before town meeting, we'd be happy to try to answer them. But as I said at the beginning, it's not about just the numbers. It's also about the services and the value that citizens get for those services. So I had another quote that from a letter that we'd received thanking our rescue crew. This is a family that was involved in a traffic accident on Interstate 89. And they said, "Thank you for everything you did for our children and all that you continue to do. We keep you in our hearts." So as I said, it isn't all about the money. It's also about the value received and the services that we provide. So that's a quick overview on the budget. And so I think we're going to jump right now into some of the other articles, and we have several to talk about this evening. And the first that I'm going to talk about is actually Article 7, and this involves a proposal for the citizens to vote on whether or not the town should withdraw from the Winooski Valley Park District. This is a district that was created in 1972, and their mission is to plan, acquire, and manage lands and waters within the boundaries of its members, the member communities that are part of the district, with the goal of protecting the watershed for the Winooski River Valley. this is an important goal that they undertake, and they actually have done a pretty good job over the years in managing the various parks that they're responsible for. And Williston has been a member of this district since 1987. So it's been quite a number of years that Williston has been an active participating member. Currently, there are 7 municipalities that are members of this district, including Colchester, Burlington, Essex, Jericho, South Burlington, Winooski, and of course, Williston. The district currently manages 18 parks, and it amounts to over 1,700 acres of natural areas. Unfortunately, there is no parkland that is accessible within the town of Williston. It's managed by the Park District. And I think part of the reason why this is that Williston actually has its own very successful program that it's had since 1989, which is shortly after the town joined the district. And in 1989, the town started setting money aside into a reserve fund to acquire natural areas and conserve land. This effort has been hugely successful. There are, since the inception of this, the town has acquired over 1,800 acres of land, and we've spent about $1.8 million of town funds to buy this land or buy the conservation rights on the land. And this leveraged $3.6 million of land value. So that money leveraged quite a bit of money, and many, many acres of land have been conserved as part of this. So as you can see, we've had a very, very successful town program. So the problem is that in addition to the town program, the town has been paying into the, as a member of the Park District, $32,000 a year. And the formula that determines how much money the town contributes into this district is, it ends up costing Williston residents more per person than any other member of the district. And so if the town did not decided to withdraw as a membership, then that $32,000 would be available for other uses in the town, including the possibility of using some of that money to manage the extensive system of trails and natural areas that the town already has. So the town has been a member for over 30 years, and over that time, the district has not acquired any land within the town that's accessible within the town. And I think that's, as I said before, largely because the town has had its own very successful program. Now, there are other arguments, though, that say the town should stay in. And for example, the district has been aggressively trying to find land within the town that they can manage and conserve. And in fact, recently they have proposed taking over 29 acres of town land that was recently donated to the town and developing that, managing that as parkland for passive recreation use. And that's certainly a positive sign for those that want to gain more value from the district. The other concern is that if the town withdraws from the district, the concern is that that could jeopardize the future existence of that district. So those are some of the arguments for voting against withdrawal, but there's also obviously persuasive arguments the other side, which is why I think the Select Board is putting this to a vote for the townspeople to decide. So I'm going to, and I've skipped over a couple of my slides here. So maybe you can help remind me what I'm supposed to do this, Jennifer. The next topic I'm going to talk about is Article 8. And that involves the proposed purchase of 25 tracker units. These are solar panels that are currently located behind the town hall. These units, we signed an agreement actually with a company to install these units in the September of 2012. And the units were actually installed at no expense to the town, and they were operational by January 2013. So there was a pretty tight time schedule as far as getting them installed. And they've been working great since they've been installed. And in fact, I believe they're generating more power than they're rated for, so that's a good thing. The company that installed them paid 100% of the costs,
and we gain a small value from that. And I think Jennifer will talk a little bit about the financial piece of this in a few minutes. But the question being posed to the townspeople is, should the town purchase these and own them outright, rather than continue to have the company that installed them get the full benefit of the power that they generate? So, as I said, the units are generating a little bit more power than they're rated for. They're rated for 150 kilowatt hours per year, and I believe they're currently generating in excess of 200 kilowatt hours per year. The rated life of these panels is 25 years, and we currently have 5 years, so they have about 20 more years at least life expectancy. The purchase price is $345,000. And so, Jennifer, why don't you tell a little bit about what we did to analyze this and talk a little bit about the financials on this.
Yes. So Green Lantern Group shared with us, they went out and received an independent appraisal for the current cost to purchase these solar panels. We then gave that to our consultant who looked at, he reviewed the cost for reasonableness. He also researched any ongoing maintenance costs that we would incur and anticipated revenue. And from that, we were able to look at that and prepare what the payback would be for the town of Williston if we purchased these outright. Right now, the town currently receives $2,000 a year in revenue that we use to offset utility payments for these solar panels. The rest of the utility credits goes to rent these from Green Lantern Group. If the town was to purchase these, which our option is at year 6 or year 10, in year 6, we would start receiving the full amount of those credits that we would then apply to our utility bills. The town is in a fortunate position in that we would not have to take on additional debt to purchase these. So we could use the amount, $200,000 from our general fund balance, $125,000 from a current purchase or the current debt that we have with the Public Works Garage that we underspent in that project. So we're already paying for that money, and then some utility savings to pay for that $345,000. So then each year we would receive between, the analysis showed about $35,000 to $47,000 in utility credits that the town would then be able to take. And so the payback on this project would be about 11 years.
Okay, and I think the other point to mention is that this proposal is supported entirely by the Select Board. I think it was unanimous vote. So that's important to note as well. So the next article is Article 9, and this involves the possible formation of a public safety authority. And this is an interesting proposal. It's something that's been a long time in coming, actually. What it is a proposal to form a new regional government that would be tasked with providing dispatch services to emergency agencies like the police departments, fire departments, and ambulance services in the region. Currently, there are existing examples of regional governmental agencies. They provide different services. For example, you have the Champlain Water District that provides water to a number of communities. You have the Green Mountain Transit, which provides bus service to a number of communities, and the Chittenden Solid Waste District, which I think the name is self-explanatory what services they provide, but these are all separate governmental agencies that provide specific services to the region. And so this new authority, if it's formed, would do the same thing, and right now the plan would be that it would provide regional dispatch services. This concept, as I said, was a long time in coming. In fact, it was first discussed at least 50 years ago, and more recently there was it was more than 20 years ago, there was a 1995 study, and the study looked at it and said, hey, this is a good idea. Of course, the devil is in the details. Here we're more than 25 years later, we still don't have regional dispatch. Although there has been some movement towards that. For example, the town of Shelburne dispatches for multiple agencies, and including the town of Williston Fire Department. And the town of Colchester also dispatches for more than one agency. So there's been kind of a sub-regional effort to take advantage of the value of grouping multiple agencies under one umbrella as far as dispatching, but it hasn't been done on a region-wide basis yet. So dispatching is a very important part of the response that emergency agencies go through. And it's really, well, the first step is the actual call being made by the person needing help or the family needing help. And time is of the essence here. Well, from the time you make the call, you want, if you're in the one that's experiencing some sort of medical emergency or other emergency, you want assistance as quickly as they can get there. And so this whole dispatch piece of it is an important piece because every moment, every step takes time. And the process starts, as I said, from when the call first is made. And under the current arrangement, the first call comes in to a call taker. This is the 911 call taker. And the state police have call takers, and the town of Shelburne also has call takers. And so let's say a call comes in, and so the call taker takes the call and determines what agency the call is intended for and what the type of emergency is. They then transfer that call to a dispatch service. And for the town of Williston, it depends on what the emergency is. If it's a fire emergency or an ambulance, the call comes in to the town of Shelburne, actually, and then is transferred to the fire department to respond, or our ambulance to respond to the emergency. If it's a police emergency, it actually comes through the state police to the town of Williston Police Department, and then they are dispatched. Further complicating it, depending on the time of day, the call might be dispatched by the state police or might be dispatched by the town's own police dispatchers. And I'll get into that a little bit further in a minute. So it's a complicated arrangement, and in the end, there's time wasted between when the call taker first takes the call and when the call is transmitted to the dispatcher, and then the dispatcher has to dispatch the actual police car or fire truck or ambulance out to the call.
So it sounds like a patchwork.
It is, exactly. And that's, Williston is just one little piece. You know, the other communities also have pieces, and there's mutual aid agreements, for example, where each town will step in and offer to help if a community needs it. And with each dispatching their own agency, there's lack of coordination because of that fragmented communications network. As an example, recently the town, actually there was a call that was initiated in another community, involved a chase by another police department that ended in Williston. Our police department didn't know about it until they heard a call come in to our fire squad looking for an ambulance because in case someone was injured. And our police department should have known about that because they could have played an important role in helping to keep people safe. And they weren't part of that call because of this fragmented communications network. So currently, as I said a moment ago, Williston is actually fragmented within itself as to who dispatches. For the fire and ambulance, it's dispatched by the town of Shelburne, and the town pays $56,000 per year for that service. Part of the time for the police, this town has its own staff dispatching, and about 46% of the time our own staff dispatches for police. The other 54% of the time it's dispatched by the state police. For the town staff and all the equipment and everything, the cost of that service is about $219,000 a year. For the state police providing dispatch service, the cost is $0. Now that sounds like a good deal, and why doesn't the town switch to state police all the time? Well, first of all, the state police won't accept that. They have their hands full with their own crew, but also they have talked about wanting to shed the extra work that Williston provides them. And there's even been talk about if the town won't shed it, of charging the town. But Williston isn't the only community that's in this situation, and it hasn't happened so far. But our expectation at some point, it may very well happen. And we need to have something in place to, in case the state does decide that they won't dispatch for the town any further. So if this Public Safety Authority is formed, it would serve 7 communities, assuming all 7 vote in favor of this. And in order to form, it requires 3 communities to positively vote in favor of this. Assuming there is a favorable vote by 3 communities, this newly formed authority would have to hire an executive director, begin the process of purchasing equipment, software, hiring dispatchers, and gearing up. The plan is to have this geared up over a period of years. It wouldn't all be just boom, you turn on the switch and all the communities are dispatched. The idea is that it would start with 2 or 3 communities and then grow from that point. Each town, this is an important point, would decide for itself whether or not it actually wants to receive the services of this dispatch service or not. And if it decides, so it's really a 2-step process. First, do you want to form this authority? And then if the authority is formed, do you want to actually receive the service and pay for the service? If you're not receiving the service, you're not paying for it. And so that's an important thing. So this, assuming the authority is formed, the select board will then have a very difficult decision at some point as to whether or not we should actually pay and become an active member of this service.
We have a few minutes left. What is the sentiment among the select board? Is this a good idea? Do you support it? Is it going to cost the town more, or is it going to improve efficiency and speed response times?
The select board supported putting it on the ballot so that the townspeople could make a decision as to whether or not we should go forward with this. I think Rick has just said it'll be our responsibility within the next couple of years to make a decision as to whether or not it's going to cost more, and if it does cost more, is it worth it?
Great.
Yeah, so just to summarize some of the things that have to be considered as we move forward on this issue. If all the communities switch to the authority, and Williston joins, we'll have some savings in staff costs, but we won't save 100% of the money we're currently spending, because we have a number of services that our dispatchers that we have in Williston are providing that aren't dispatch service. They do a lot of records work, for example. So there are some costs that will remain. And we still have the $56,000 a year we're currently paying the town of Shelburne for fire and rescue, and if Shelburne joins, then that would be transferred over to this regional dispatch service. So in all likelihood, for Williston to switch 100% of its services over to the regional dispatch, it'll probably cost us more than what we're currently paying. So that'll be a decision the select board is going to have to make at some point in the future and weigh the advantages and disadvantages. But as I noted, there's also an advantage, even if it costs more, the improvement in service could be dramatic. For example, the 70 seconds is a number that's been thrown out there that would be saved from when the call taker takes the call and the call is actually dispatched. That's critical time that would be gained. And that's an average, but that's a critical time. The mutual aid situation, coordinating the communications between various departments is another critical piece of this. I also believe that these dispatchers that would be hired by this regional service would be better trained and actually be able to provide a higher level of service than currently is in place. And I think one other thing, and I didn't mention this before, currently when a call comes in for a fire or rescue, the call is dispatched, but that's the end of the interaction between the dispatch service and the fire and rescue squads. They need more than that. During the call, they need support services, and they aren't always getting that. With a regional dispatch service, they'll have, for that call, they'll have a dedicated dispatcher that will be able to follow that call and provide extra services as needed during the service of that. So the chiefs, both the fire chiefs, police chiefs throughout the region are supporting this initiative. And as I said, the vote to form the authority does not commit the town to actually paying and receiving the service. That's a separate commitment that the town select board will have to decide upon. But this regional dispatch will be providing options for the town of Williston. And I think there is a potential for the future to provide a much better level of service and in the end save time in this process. And seconds count when we're talking dispatch service. So that's kind of a quick overview, and it's a complicated topic, but it's an important one for the townspeople to consider.
Thank you. I think we might have just a couple seconds left for, I wanted to ask about the possible acquisition of the McCullough Catamount Family Center property and what's entailed with that. Is that a good idea? Is it worth it?
Well, I'll let Terry talk about whether it's a good idea or not. This is, I want to make it clear, this is not an item that's being voted on at this town meeting, either on Monday night or Tuesday.
Right.
Right. It's a decision that actually the select board has because under the Environmental Reserve Fund that we have, the money is put into that fund, and then the select board, in consultation with our Conservation Commission, have the ability to make that decision. So, Terry.
So the select board does unanimously support the concept and the price that we will be supporting, hopefully supporting on the ballot. For in the budget, we have money in the budget to do our share of it, and look forward to the town people supporting that.
Terrific.
Yeah, there's still some details to have to get worked out. The select board have a study committee that's working on that, and they're focusing on the types of uses. And they're also looking at the costs that the town may have moving forward with this. The expectation is those costs will be minimal, and but the select board ultimately have to weigh all that information.
I think we have a 15-member committee studying this thing, as well as some consultants doing it as well. So we look forward to having a good process.
And how big is that property? How many acres?
Oh, what?
400 acres, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
It's quite a large parcel.
It's a large parcel.
Yeah, and that'll significantly add to our 1,700 acres or 1,800 acres I talked about earlier. And that's all part of the very successful program that we've had in conserving land in Williston.
Great. All right. You have anything you want to add, Jennifer? Terry?
No, we do have some important dates, though, that we want to share.
Please.
We can get those up on the screen.
We
Terry,
do,
you want-
and so town meeting is the night of March 5th at 7 o'clock at the Williston Central School auditorium. The town meeting, we'll be talking about the articles that are warned for that night, and the last one will be the town budget hearing that will talk about what we talked about tonight. Voting is March 6th. Actually, early voting, I think, has started already, so people can stop by the town hall and vote or ask for an absentee ballot. And so we'll be voting from 7 to 7 on March 6th at the Williston Central School. This time it'll be in the dining room, not the gymnasium.
All right. Wanted to thank the three of you very much for coming. And at 6 o'clock, we have a candidate forum. We'll be joined by Terry Macaig, who's running unopposed. We also have another candidate, Joy Limoge, will be joining us, pre-recorded interview on the 14th on Valentine's Day. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello and welcome to CCTV, Town Meeting TV's continuing coverage of Town Meeting Day in Vermont. Tonight we have the town of Williston. We have Terry Macaig, who is the board chair of the Williston Selectboard. He's running unopposed for another 2-year term. Three-year term. Coming up on the 14th, we will also have Joy Limoge by pre-recorded interview. She's also running unopposed. Good evening, Terry. Can you tell us about yourself and why you're running for office?
Sure. So I've lived in Williston for 51 years. I've been on the select board for 16 years, and I believe I've been chair for 13 of those. In my 40 years of giving back to the town of Williston, I've been involved with the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Little League, the girls softball teams. I was health officer for 27 years until July 1. Now I'm the deputy. I was the president of the Historical Society in Williston for 13 years until January 1st. And I think that it's important, I think, to have a historical perspective on the board. There's another person on the board who's served a long time, and we have 2 people that are relatively new on the board. So I think I'd like to keep on giving back to the town and keeping that perspective.
All right. So about the fiscal year 19 budget, do you support the increased budget? Estimated, I think we just heard it was an increase of 4.75% over last year.
Yes, it's $111 million in change, and I do support that. And the select board, you voted unanimously to support the budget that comes to the voters on March 6th.
All right. What about economic development, Terry? The town's always emphasized mixed use, but retail is a substantial portion of the tax base in Williston. Are you concerned about the overall decline of retail as a source of tax revenue?
Well, I'm worried about the future of retails. Yes, absolutely. It seems like nationwide the retail sales are diminishing. We have not seen that up to this point in Williston. And each of the quarterly reports we get back from the state regarding our 1% sales tax indicates that it continues to hold steady. In fact, in the past quarter, it went up substantially. So we would look to the future to see what we can do to mitigate that happening. That may mean bringing other types of industry into the town, which we can accommodate to provide not just services, but products that are used by other industry in the town and for the state as well.
Do you have any ideas what other kinds of businesses those would be?
Haven't got a clue at this point, but always looking for suggestions from town folks and from others involved in commerce that might have some information for us to give.
It's interesting that you said that you have not seen a decline in retail in Williston because it's down nationally.
Yes.
I think the estimates are that something like 1 out of every $2 spent in Vermont on retail goes to Amazon. It's awfully high, so that's good that you continue to experience some sales growth.
And I think I look forward to the next few years the laws changing so that the taxes that are not being collected now in a lot of states will be collected from online sales.
And where would that change be made? In Montpelier, or would that be made in the Congress?
I believe it really needs to happen nationally.
Right.
There's a lot of states that want to do this, and I think so far legally they have not been able to do that.
Right.
There was something proposed as legislation, I think, a couple of years ago to do that in Vermont, and it was not successful.
Right. So what about the vision for the town? Have you reviewed the most recent update of the town plan? Or the general question is, what's your vision of Williston for the next 10 to 20 years?
So yes, the town plan was reviewed by the select board after it came to us from the Planning Commission, and it's a very extensive document. I have to tell you that yes, I did read the whole thing. Whether or not I remember everything that's in it, probably not. But there are some new things. One that I think was required by the legislature to include in our town plan, and that was economic development. which we just talked about a little bit, and also the energy plans for the town have been updated. And in fact, there was an interesting law that was passed a number of years ago that allowed the town to have an energy coordinator. And we had not done that until the town plan now recommends that we do that. We have just appointed an individual to be our energy coordinator. He will not bring forward things that have to be implemented, but is encouraged to bring forth things that could be implemented in the town as far as energy savings. One of the things that we're doing, of course, and we mentioned that during the budget presentation, are the possibility of buying our solar trackers that we have in the back of the town hall this year. While it's a large expenditure now, it'll pay off great dividends during the course of the next 20 years.
Just quick question about those solar trackers. I think what Jennifer Kennelly said, they generate between 150 to 200 kilowatt hours.
Yes.
And so how much of that is of Williston's power, does that provide, or what would be a typical household?
Don't have any idea.
Well,
I'm not good on that particular topic.
Let's move on to affordability and housing. It's an important issue in Williston. It's an important issue in Vermont. Do you support establishing a trust fund to support affordable housing? What else do you think the town could be doing to provide more housing opportunities for residents?
And I do support the trust fund. It's $15,000. It doesn't go a long ways. But we did have a task force, actually we've had two task forces on affordable housing. The last one was chaired by Debbie Ingram, who was on our board at that time, and now is a state senator. And her committee, her task force, recommended that we do come forward with a way to try to help finance affordable housing in Williston. Right now, houses are very expensive. The developers that we have had build houses in Williston claim that they can't put too much in line of affordable housing in because they're paying for the infrastructure of the developments. So we have to find a way to get more affordable housing in the town. There are a few places in town, one called the Hamlet, which has affordable housing in it. And we need to develop more developments like the Hamlet. We take a look at South Burlington, which has a nice small development of affordable housing with small houses also, which we could model ourselves on. And if we are successful in this budget cycle of putting $15,000 in, then perhaps we'll have the impetus to do that again next year and the succeeding years. So
$15,000 out of a $111 million budget does not sound like a huge amount, but you have to start building a trust fund, and the idea is to fund affordable housing. You combine money from several different sources, from state grants, federal grants, nonprofit organizations, and perhaps a town housing trust fund.
All that is true, yes.
Okay. Public safety. Towns in Chittenden County are considering a regional emergency police dispatch system. You think Williston should participate in this mutual aid agreement, and what questions still need to be answered?
So yes, we've been looking at this for about 2 years now, getting more information regarding the dispatch service, regional dispatch service, and at every step in the way, the select board has made a decision to go forward with this. And the proposal to go forward is now on the ballot, which will be on March 6th. That's one of the things that will be determined by the voters in Williston as to whether or not they want us to consider going forward with this. So in the next year or two, we will have the opportunity to take a look at who's in and who's out, whether we should be in or out.
You mean by the other 7 communities, or
yes,
to all 7 communities in Chittenden County?
That's correct.
Who's in or out, right.
And the proposal from the study committee that put forward this was to say they need about 3 or 4 communities to begin with, and Williston was not included in that particular group of folks. They're encouraging us, though to become members of this, and we'll have to make that determination in a couple of years. We're going to need to take a look at the cost of it compared to what we're doing right now, to the efficiency that we would gain by going to a dispatch service other than what we have at the current time, and make that determination and recommend it back to the voters probably in 2 years.
It's interesting, Terry, just because I would think Williston would, there would be a large demand because Williston is one of the larger towns in Chittenden County outside of Burlington in terms of land area and population, and because you have an interstate highway traveling through it.
And in my mind, it makes good sense at this point in time to do this. We do have currently 2 dispatchers that work Monday through Friday, 16 hours. So we are dependent upon the state police right now to dispatch for police services. We're dependent upon, I believe, Shelburne to dispatch for fire services. So it would make better sense in my mind, and I think the select board's mind, to have one organization doing it.
Great. Recreation and land preservation. Do you support Williston Town efforts to acquire the McCullough Catamount Family Center property? Absolutely,
and the select board does as well. We've been also looking at this proposal for over a year. We have created a committee of about, I believe, 15 people, plus some consultants from the state agencies and the county forester as well, to take a look at whether or not, first of all, was this a good idea? And the select board believes that it is. We have a conservation fund that is depleted at this point with the monies that we've said we would put forward into the Catamount Forest, and we need more. So that's a part of the budget is to include $220,000 in the proposed budget to actually purchase the land for a town forest. It has great opportunities, we believe, and as I said, the task force will be taking a look at how this will be implemented, what the role of the existing Catamount Board of Directors is, whether or not it's a totally free area, or whether there would be allowable funds
you'd have to pay a user fee like you do now. You need a trail pass to ride bikes or ski there.
There could well be that, especially for the paths that exist right now under Catamount. For using other things, for perhaps walking or for doing other things, it might be a free service. I think they're talking about horseback riding there. No motorized vehicles allowed except for the bikes that are allowed there right now.
And so, and how much would the town need to pay to acquire?
So I believe that the town...
This is 400 acres we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a large...
That is essentially rural.
Absolutely.
Woods and fields.
Yep.
And that would be added to the existing 1,700 acres of Williston Town Forest?
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean,
so, and how would that cost?
So I think the total cost for this is $600,000 from our conservation fund, and the conservation fund, I believe, has $400,000 in it right now, which we said we would use to purchase the property. So we need the additional $220,000 from this budget. Now, there's a good possibility that we will get a grant for $200,000 from the state and federal funds. That would not occur until after July 1st, when we think that the closing will happen. So if we, in fact, we get the $200,000, it'll go back into the conservation fund and offset the cost to the town.
$600,000 for 400 acres in Williston sounds like a, well, it's quite a deal. I imagine there's been a lot of pressure from developers over the years to acquire that property and to build houses on it.
McCulloughs have had great opportunities to sell their property for probably millions of dollars, and have
considerably more than 600,000.
Oh, much more, much more, and to put houses there, and they said no, that this is not a place to be developed, and So they've been an outstanding family.
And what about the Winooski Valley Park District? While we're continuing on the theme of recreation and preservation, should the town continue to participate, or under what conditions? What would the town of Williston lose if it withdrew from the Winooski Valley Park District?
Well, at this point, we've looked at this at the Park District for probably 4 or 5 years now, and have asked our Conservation Commission as to what they would like to see happen with the Park District. And as Rick mentioned during the budget presentation, there's really no lands in Williston except for one small area along Buddy Brook that the Park District owns. So we're not sure that we're getting much in the line of value from this. So a year ago, the Select Board told the Park District, take a look at your fee structure, because we believe we're paying more than our fair share on this. And if you don't, well, then our option is to put it on the ballot to get out of the Park District, which would mean a year from now. So it's on the ballot this year. The Select Board voted 3-2 to put this on the ballot, and I have mixed feelings about this because the Conservation Commission has come back in and said it's worth, with the parcel that we have just been donated, I think of about 80 acres, that there's a possibility that they could develop this land and do something with it. And that's still a
develop it as
develop it for recreational purposes. And it borders on the Winooski River, but there's very little access to this property at the moment. There could be access developed for it. And so the Congress, and I didn't want to vote against the Conservation Commission, but I did to put it on the ballot to let the townsfolk have their opportunity to take a look at it. I think when push comes to shove on voting day, that I'll probably vote to keep us in the district, but that's my own personal vote, not the Select Board's.
I just want to remind our viewers, I'm here with Terry Macaig from Williston Town Select Board, that if you have a question in the next 3 minutes, please call 862-3966. The next 2 minutes. What question about water quality? The state of Vermont is recommending to fund the Clean Lake Champlain and watershed through a per parcel fee. Williston already collects a fee based on square footage of impervious surface, like parking lots.
Right.
Are you concerned about double taxation? And what message are you bringing to Montpelier about this plan?
Sure, we are, and the proposal is not just for Champlain Valley and Lake Champlain. It's a statewide problem because we have the same types of problems with the Connecticut River and Lake Maguire. So it's a statewide proposal, and the latest that I saw was perhaps the parcel fee, per parcel fee. Yes, we are concerned that we would get paid double on this, and since I'm a state legislator, I've been talking to my cohort, Jim McCullough, who I carpool with going to Montpelier. He happens to be on the Natural Resources, Fish and Wildlife Committee, which is going to be taking this up when it comes from the Senate. And I think we're both in agreement that there's got to be equity among the towns that already have a stormwater program like us and South Burlington. I think Colchester and Shelburne is going to start it. So there has to be equity to recognize that we already are paying our fair share.
Terrific. You have any closing comments, Mr. Macaig?
Hope everybody will come out and support the budget that the Select Board unanimously endorses. Please come out and to the town meeting on the night of March 5th. There's one proposal there that people have petitioned to get on the ballot, which is there for discussion and voting on that night. And March 6th, please come out and elect the people that will represent you on the Select Board, and hopefully consider carefully the budget and the other ballot items.
Thank you very much. My guest tonight has been Terry Macaig, Chair of the Williston Town Select Board. We'll have Joy Limoge by pre-recorded interview on the 14th. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Channel 17. Well, quickly.
That went very quickly.